Testing, and we are live. Thanks everybody for stopping by. This is Bronze Dragon starting off my Saturday morning stand-up, which is a weekly occurrence at 11 Eastern Time. In this case, since we're in the summer, or starting on the summer, Eastern Daylight Savings Time. This is a broadcast that I like to discuss Splinterlands related topics. And a lot of times we get into Splinter Forge and sometimes other games on the Hive blockchain. Most weeks, I have a list of things to go through that were talked about in the town hall. This week, we did not have a town hall due to Easter, so I don't really have a list of topics to go by. Hey, Alex. Alex says, I just got the champion end of season rewards I ever got. Nice. Let me go over and check. You know what? I have not even claimed mine yet. I just saw that they ended and it kind of coincided with me starting this broadcast. So maybe we can just do this online after we get a few more people on here. So how did your rewards turn out? Pretty good? Anyway, I was going to say that I kind of wanted to talk about land again. I know everybody's talking about land, but that's the big thing going on right now. And we have the white paper, which I did a video on. I've done a couple videos on. I did a deep dive this week on the cost of food. Amazing. Nice. That's good to hear. I always like to hear it when people are getting good drops. Got 3 legendaries. Nice. I had another person I've been corresponding with that runs another channel, Drop Bear Jim, that showed me his end of season, and he got really good drops as well. So maybe here in a few minutes we can go ahead and claim mine live on air and see what I got. Looks like I got 52 diamond chests this week or this season, so we'll see. But I just kind of wanted to dive in, and unless you had something else you wanted to talk about, let's discuss land a little bit because that's on everyone's mind. So let's start off with looking at what the land market looks like today. So I've been keeping an eye on the land market. I think everybody else has this past week since it went live, and the commons have kind of stayed in that $60 range. There were a few instances where it kind of got below $60, but it's kind of leveled out in between $60 and $70. So I think that's what it'll stay for a little while. I think that there are still a lot of lands to be there's still a lot of lands to be claimed, and there's still a lot of lands to be surveyed, because the next available plot is 121, track 10, plot 90, and we're still at 121. I am waiting, along with, I know Gathering the Magic, who originally gave me this idea, but we're waiting on 130, which is Daggerdale, just because mainly we like the name, and also the region seems to be mountain populous and have a good spread out of different types, land types. So I'm waiting for that, but it seems like the land claiming and the land surveys have really slowed down over the last week. So we're just kind of crawling through 121 now, and we have 9 more areas to go ahead and go through before we get to 130. But with that said, it kind of looks like the value of the commons have leveled out between $60 and $70. But that's kind of a general statement, because going back to some points that Gathering the Magic also made and I kind of followed up on, is the fact that I don't think all lands are created equal. Obviously, Obviously, the magical, the castle, the keep, the occupied, they're all roughly valued more than what the naturals are. But even just talking about naturals, I think that Gathering's point on the fact that calderas and mountains maybe end up worth more than the others, because due to the limited availability of these being the only lands that can produce ore. So, and I also kind of want to go back to what I made a video on this week. If you haven't seen, a couple days ago, day before last, I put out a video on food and the food usage for our characters that will be staked on each land. I think it's going to start out and it's going to be more expensive than what most people think. However, due to how the game works, that cost for grain or whatever food you end up using will end up going down over time. Alex says, I got a common swap magical land swamp and a rare bog with box and totem. That's nice. I think, and the value of these is yet to be seen, but obviously the magical stand to be worth more than the others. I have a Magic Lake rare. I think even the common magical lands will end up being worth a good deal. Obviously, they haven't probably even developed exactly what that magic does and everything. It's probably still in the development phase, but it stands to be worth more. Now, as far as the rare versus common standard naturals, I think it just depends upon the price. Okay, so here's my example. The rares are only they produce the value of a rare is that it produces 20% more than a common, right? Now, if you can go in and you can buy a rare for roughly 20 or 30% more than a common, then it would probably be a good purchase, right? But if you're going in and you're looking at these lands and the rare is twice what a common costs, I don't think the value is there. So with that said, I think we're still in a situation where it's a wait and see. I have a land in 14, 12, Gilith. So I have a desert in Gilith that I'm trying to sell because, and if you've just joined, I see a few people have joined. Thanks for coming in. We're discussing land. If anybody has any other Splinterlands related topics, go ahead and throw them in the chat and we'll discuss them. I usually have go by the list of whatever is on the town hall, but since there was not a town hall this week, we're just kind of doing it off the cuff. So as everyone is interested in land currently, that's what I'm discussing. Anyway, I have a desert in Gilith that I'm trying to sell. When I first started off, and as they started developing all of this, the whole land game, my idea was that I would spread myself out and put a land, put one of my plots here and then across the map and everything. But as this is developing, and if you've watched my video, and we'll point out in the white paper if we get to it, a few items of interest that I think it's going to behoove everyone to kind of centralize where they're at, because just due to transportation, because you're going to need a lot of food, whether you buy it or whether you produce it. And I always go into these things trying to go from the aspect of being able to be self-sufficient. I understand, and I'm not talking about being self-sufficient as far as what we end up producing, okay? Because they've already stated that we're going to need all different kinds of materials to produce things. But from what I learned this week, each land, you're going to have 5 characters on each land staked. Those characters are going to cost a fairly decent amount per day to keep active as far as food goes. Bumped my microphone. So with that said, I'm kind of rearranging my thought process in that I want my lands to be situated nearby each other, so I can, when needed, transport things back and forth, especially like grain. Also, with the fact that the grain is considered in a area basis. So you can have a land in the same area of another land and it's producing just grain. And when you do a harvest and on one land and say it's mining ore or something else other than grain, it can check against the other land. So you have one land that's just producing grain, and for most intents and purposes, it's producing double the grain that it actually needs for its characters to get by on. Then you can use that other half of the grain for your other land. Okay, so obviously a lot of this kind of comes down to how much grain is selling for, whether it's better to just sell the grain and then buy other materials, or whether it's just kind of the thing I came down to after doing my last video was that it may just be worth at the outset for the first few weeks just producing grain on all the land and not having to buy it at 1 DEC per grain, whatever. So Alex says, I'm in 91, not many mountains there. We'll need to buy one. Yeah, really consider where you're at and consolidation. I mean, obviously this is not investment advice, but it does look like there will be several other costs involved if you're trying to transport from one area to another. Alex says, I'm not going to go crazy and try to produce everything. Stick with my 2 plots and build a lumberyard. Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea. I mean, I have 3 plots currently. I'm trying to sell the one in the Northwest and move it over to my other plot in the Great Lowlands. Because my idea would be to have my one plot, which is a rare magical, and then have another plot that's just producing food, which produces enough food for both plots, right? And then possibly I have a third one, which I haven't claimed. I've stated before that I want to claim it in 130 in Daggerdale. Possibly buy a 4th plot, once again, just to produce food. Now, will that change in the future? Probably, because there's still so many variables on the table, right? There's so many things they probably haven't even made up yet. This game has evolved so quickly since last Christmas. I mean, it's last Christmas we were just happy to hear about land. Now it's really kind of in play and we're learning. But as everything has gone along, we've learned that the costs involved are basically going up. This is, I think, the biggest goal is to make the value of SPS and DEC go up, because they put a lot of DEC and SPS sinks into this land game that we didn't even know about last Christmas, right? Because they weren't made up, right? So they might have been in development, but nobody heard about them. So thanks everybody for joining. If you do have a comment or you have something you want to talk about Splinterlands related, go ahead and throw it in the comments section. Or the chat rather. Since there was not a town hall this week, we're just talking about land, but we can also talk about Splinter Forge, or if anybody wants to talk about the elephant in the room, the new game Golem Overlord, which if you haven't been keeping your eye on, the token, which is called Part, has been way up, and I do believe that it's really affected the price of SPS and DEC as well. Jedi, hanging with you guys for a bit. How you doing? Did you open your end of season chest yet? I still have mine to open. Alex reported that he did well with his. And another person I'm acquainted with, and I'm going to be doing a live stream with Drop Bear Jim, who covers Splinterlands on his channel as well, claims that he got really good end of season chests as well. GXL, are you referring to the token? No, I'm referring to the Part token. If you're not familiar, since you guys have been around, I will let you know this does represent a different game on the Hive blockchain, but here at the outset, it does appear to be, hey, Gathering, just discussing land, since we didn't have a town hall this week and some everything around land, and I was just briefly mentioning the Golem Overlord because, I mean, I think my brother said it really well when he texted me, and he just said incredulously, "What? A token that actually goes up?" If you're all not familiar with it, Golem Overlord started last week. It's about a week old now, and there's not a whole lot to the game as far as actions you have to do, but one of the main takeaways is the fact that the main token that they use, which is called part, has really went up in value, mainly because when he designed the game, he designed a lot of token burning in the process, so the prices went up. And today, let me refresh, the token is sitting at just over 2 hive, per part. So anyway, back to Splinterlands. If no one wants to talk about that, we can talk more Splinterlands. Jedi says, pretty lackluster on my end, 40 diamond chests, and the highlight was just 1,800 merits. Well, good stuff comes and goes, I consider that my daily chests for this past season have been just kind of mediocre. Not terrible. I still have my chests to open, so maybe here in a few minutes we'll open the chests live. I have just over 40. Yeah, I think I have 42 diamond chests to open. Gathering says, Golem Overlord is pretty fun. Don't have to spend a lot of time on it and already made my money back and then some. Yeah, I agree. And it's mainly, I think it benefits people who play Splinterlands in the fact that the token value is going up and you mine it or can attack for the token, and you can take that token out at a certain percentage, like up to 25%, and sell it on Hive Engine. And if you need some SPS or you need some DEC or you want to do something else with it in Splinter Forge or Splinterlands, go for it. Sell it off, buy the other token, transfer it in game. It's very easy. Have to open my chest yet. Just did my guild brawls. And Jedi says, waiting for your end of season video, Gathering. Yeah. So let's go over to Peak Monsters. We were just reviewing the cost of land. I think we've all been talking about it. I know that Gathering has made a few videos on this lately about the cost of land and how the commons have kind of like leveled out in the 60 to 70 range. But once again, back to your point the other day on the ore producing lands, up around $100, or a little bit more, depending upon where you want to be. And kind of combining the other point I was making about thinking about where you're at on the map and kind of consolidating in the area, because due to a few points in the white paper, I sat down and I read this white paper from front to back this week, and it took about 30-45 minutes. But I think that I know that if you are investing in land in this game, you should sit down and you should read this. Now, it does change, and it has changed since they put it out. They keep it up to date, and they're adding new things as time goes along. But you should be aware of all the costs involved. And once again, I want to kind of jump back to the food costs. I think up front, the food costs will be higher than what a lot of people anticipated. But as people clear their land, and if you didn't know, it's in one of the sections here in the white paper, you can do 3 different things on your land once you've cleared it and build your building right. You can harvest grain, you can harvest whatever that land is good at, and there's one other thing like magical or SPS if it's one of those lands, right? So I think up front, it might be better from my point of view. What I'm going to do is probably just have all my lands producing grain. Because the one thing I don't want to do is buy grain at 1 DEC per grain unit. And let's see, let me catch up here. Jedi says, wish Forge would do something to get Forgium prices up a bit. Yeah, I mean, since I'm guilty. I'm still playing Splinter Forge. In fact, currently, well, let me refresh here. Currently, I'm 27 I'm playing against Silver Boss currently, and I'm saving because the next purchase I think I want is get another boot. I need to raise my boots. It's a tough pill to swallow. What is this? Wow. I think that just didn't load right. That's my elite sword. I thought I got some kind of random thing. Yeah, I think my next move is to raise the level of my boots to level 3. It's a tough pill to swallow, though, because I need 3 more boots, and it only gives me 1 extra speed. But yeah, the Forge price, let's see what the Forge is going on now. I think that, he really, look at this. Really the volume, let's look at volume. Yeah, not getting any volume to load, but you can see the value just going down, or the candles. I don't know what to say. It's still a fun game to play. I think he needs to stand back and look at how the token is used. I think from the outset, Golem Overlord, not that this is a Golem Overlord webcast, but I do believe that if you're playing Splinterlands, there's a strong value into getting into this game and playing it, if for nothing else, to funnel out, 15% or 20% of your token of your token that you make here, which is called part, and use it in Splinterlands, or vice versa. Because I can tell you, to get started off in Golem Overlord, I funneled out a decent amount of DEC that I had and bought into stats. So now let me get caught up. Gathering says, great time to buy crates and bags. Legendary Reforges coming with new armor, Naruto set pieces. Yeah, I saw that informational piece dropped, and I have not been able to dig in. I do want to do a video on that, but I do not have the details. So let's go back to, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and claim my chests. While we're at it, let me take a drink here. You can see live on the stream what kind of chests I got. I believe it was 42. Let's see, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. No, I counted wrong. 5, 10, 20, 25, 30. 40, 45, 50, 52. That's more than I thought. Well, let's start at the bottom. 144 merits. 1.5 shards almost. Splinter shards. Tamaki orcs. Some potions. More potions. 1.1 splinter shards. A couple fire callers. More potions, 9.6 splinter shards, 6.5 splinter shards, 144 merits, 3 Gobson bombers, 1.8 splinter shards, 9.8 splinter shards, a few fungus flingers, 5.7 splinter shards, 57 merits, 5 Madcap Mages, 5 Wily Coyotians, 1.7 Splinter Shards, 4 Swamp Spitters. I like that card. 13 Alchemy Potions, 22 Legendary. Okay, so far, kind of mediocre. Let's get this going. Come on. 1.1 Splinter Shards, 21 Legendary, 2 Splinter Shards, 4 Fire Callers, 3 more Madcap Mages, 2 Splinter Shards. Oh, it's shaking, baby. Terracious Hulk times 2. So not quite enough to make a level 2, I don't think. But I will take it because I do not believe I have that one yet. Nice. Couple more of Evelyn Uvera, if that's how you pronounce it. 2 Splinter Shards. More potions. 720 merits. More potions. 1 Splinter Shard. Oh, here we go. Here we go. 2 gold summoners. Won't complain about that. I'm keeping all my gold foils single BCX. I'm playing with regular foils and keeping the gold ones single. 1.5 Splinter Shards. 1.7 Splinter Shards. Gathering says nice. Couple legendary cards for land. Yeah, I agree. I think I was talking about with Drop Bear this morning that I believe I really like the fact that they opened up the and they're going to allow for soulbound cards being staked on land. Yep. 1.7, 12 Splinter Shards, a little bit. That'll help. 6 more Lob Lowland. Okay, we're down to the last 10. Got 9 Alchemy. 7 Ferox Defenders. 15 Alchemy. Plenty of potions today. 2.3 Splinter Shards, 2.2 Splinter Shards. 3 Ravenhood Wardens, 14 potions, 8 more War Pegasus, a pack, I'll take it, always take a pack, my friend, 13 potions. So all in all, not bad. What really picked it up was this Legendary and Epic and the pack. So it was kind of mediocre until that point. Got a decent amount of Splinter Shards, nothing incredibly great. Let's go ahead and, as I usually do this on a regular video, but since we're here, let's look at what we have to open. Let's look at, see if I have enough. Yes, I have enough for a Gladius case. So let's go ahead and buy a Gladius case. Thanks everybody for stopping by. If you have anything you want to talk about, Splinterlands related, Golem Overlord, or Splinter Forge related, just stick them in the comments. And let's see. I got a ton of potions. Yeah, Jedi, I always seem to get a ton of potions. Look here. I'm at 1,175 legendary potions and 1,460 alchemy potions. And of course, this is since I started playing the game, you know, but plenty of potions. I'm also not one of those guys that buys hundreds of packs at a time and opens them. I guess if I did buy a lot of packs at a time, I would go through them a lot more rapidly. But okay, so let's go for the Gladius case. See what we got here. Cross your fingers. Ooh. Open the commons first. And here we go. Edith Emberstar. I remember seeing her. However, she appears to be pretty strong in a range deck, I guess. And we got a couple packs we can open here. Jedi says, our guild's fighting Bulldogs Guild for first place in the current brawl. 2-win difference so far. Sounds like a close one. Gathering says, are you going to reforge your legendary cards on Splinter Forge? That's a good question. I have to really look at it. I have not had time this week since they dropped that information to actually consider. And it looks like I got 2 rares in this pack. Portal Spinner is not one I use a lot. I use my Select Slip Spawn a lot. Very strong card. In the right instances, all the rest of these cards are very good to have as well. Low mana type battles, excellent. Yeah, as far as reforging the legendary cards, I really have to check into the details. And a lot of that stuff you really have to read like 5 times. Or in my case, I have to read them like 5 times just to make sure I understand it correctly. But I do know that doing all that reforging and everything, obviously it's to push the value up. Obviously you want better equipment. But one thing I will tell you is that it depends upon what level you want to fight at. Let me give you an example. I was fighting in gold, and with my stats, for the first several weeks of the game, I was doing pretty well. But as the game evolved and people got higher and higher level, I found like that I was just not competing well in gold. So I went back to silver, and I'm doing pretty well in silver because my stats are pretty well maxed out except for speed. I think I've got the max 15 shield, max 15 health, max 15 damage when I'm playing my warrior. Now my damage is a little bit less in magic and range, and then my speed's like around 12 or 13 something. So I do better and I place better in silver than I do in gold. 15k forge burn per reforge. Yeah, that's tough. And obviously he's trying to get the value of forge up because it's kind of went down. You know, that's just kind of the name of the game when you're running a game like this, Splinterlands, whoever it is. You want your token to go up in value, right? So you got, you know, we've seen it in Splinter Forge, right? We've seen just this. I've been playing for 2 years now, and just since I started playing, or since the market went into the bear market, okay? During the bull market, everybody was like, you know, spend all kinds of money and all that. But once DEC went down in value, and there was really no way to, you know, now the current, you can currently burn SPS if DEC becomes overinflated, but that wasn't available back then. So I think my main point is all these games, you want your token to do well, if from the fact of it helps you out your game. Obviously there are some people into these games that are just into it for the investment. I can't say that I've made any money off these games. In fact, I probably just, but it's a pleasant distraction to regular life, and I always emphasize people to look at their incoming and outgoing as far as your budget and spend wisely. And I've always looked at Splinterlands and Splinter Forge trying to buy assets, cards or whatever, land that give good value. Obviously, we don't want to be the guy that threw a bunch of money in a hole, right? So, in other words, I'm going to have to closely look at it and see. It's taken me quite a while to get to this point where I have this amount of equipment. In fact, last week, my major purchase was a wand. That was the last piece that I had, and now I'm just in the status of leveling them up. I think the next purchase I will make is either boots or possibly level up my quiver, which gives you extra speed. So just kind of going back to the land white paper. Just, oh, you know what? We were in the middle of this, and I had another pack to open. So, and my brother said, I've stopped opening Chaos packs. That's fine. I still have cards that need to be, you know, increased in level. So, and I always like opening a pack once in a while. This is just a regular pack, one rare. Gathering says, I'm going budget, just gold rares for me. You know, if you watch my video on the food thing this week, I looked at the betas and I looked at what you were talking about as far as the gold foils and such. And I decided with one of my cards I was going beta just to do it. So I was looking at nice rare Jin Apprentice gold foil. Yeah, I don't have much as far as Rift Watchers go either. In fact, I think I've just opened 12 packs. No, not Rift Watchers, not reward. So, you know, this is what I've got. Not much. And most of them aren't leveled up, so I don't usually play with most of them. I would like to level up a few of them. Obviously, the Summoners, Ancient Redwood, a few others. Let's look at my own Soulbound. No, not rewards. Okay, so Crash Wanderford. This is just kind of random, but I like him. Especially, I play him in my Splinter Forge hand. I'm not going to go through and combine all this. This will just take a lot of time, but I'm doing pretty well. I mean, most of my commons are level 5 to 6. A lot of my summoners are level 2 going on 3. I like Finna Vixum. I like Swamp Spitter. Like I said, I like Crash. I play Kellinor Cleaver relatively often. Edith is one of the ones I got today. I have not played her much. I do think Kulu Mastermind in the right context and build into the right hand works well. I think Quora Towers Head. I always say her name wrong, but I think she's very strong. I think she's one of those make or break. Throw her into a hand if you've got enough mana. Now, I'm not saying that she's like your only character, but I'm saying like in a maybe a 40 to 50, over 40 mana match, throw her in there. I use her. She wins a lot of battles for me. So what else? Tenacious Hulk, just got those. I had to play around with those. I use Ajax Lightfoot a lot. I use that in hands basically that have healing in life, and that works well. I use Marisol a lot. Even though it's just a 1 BCX, really. I mean, I've got more than one, but it's just level 1. She really works well in high mana matches. Put that in the reach situation right there. I would like to learn and kind of put War Pegasus into my hand more, as I think that's a strong hand, a strong card, but I haven't gotten used to it yet and found a good situation. Kind of Larissa is very strong. Also, Clockwork Aid, very good card. I think this works really well in Splinterlands and Splinter Forge, especially Splinter Forge. As you know, anything that adds speed is going to do well. So now back on the land, I wanted to make a few points here. We already talked about one of the main takeaways I got from reading through this white paper is they've added a lot of pluses for people that bought Rooney. They're trying to really increase the value of Roonies because they've added a lot to Roonies when you stake that Rooney on land. So we already knew that if you staked a Rooney on land, you wouldn't have to have a power source, right? But reading through the white paper, I also found that if you have a Rooney on land, you don't have to pay the DEC. You don't have to stake the DEC for your characters on that land. So that's a savings, a potential savings of 50,000 DEC that you don't have to stake. And there are a few other points. They're giving bonuses to the Rooney as far as production and such as well. So I'm still on the minus column as far as that. I'm not going to buy a Rooney because of really the cost, and also I just don't like doing business on the Ethereum blockchain. It just ends up costing so much. So let's see here. We just talked about the power sources and staking cards. Anybody have any opinions on, did anybody buy any cards this week to stake? Gathering says, even if you buy a $70 plot and do nothing with it, will you get SPS for 65 months? No, you won't. Great to buy and hold if that's the case. Hey, check out, and I haven't voted yet, but check out that newest proposal, which says basically no. So the newest proposal, this is nothing new, right? So this is what they've developed and had going in. So the newest governance proposal is basically that, what you're talking about. Up to this point, well, up to last week, if you owned a land, you got a certain drop of SPS. And then starting last week, at the beginning of the week, then if you had surveyed that land, which decreased the overall amount of people claiming, so for the people who had claimed, they got a higher SPS for a while, and then a bunch of people jumped in and went ahead and claimed their land. But there's still a certain amount of people that haven't claimed. Now, what this does is this proposal, once it goes through, and it does look like it's going to go through, I mean, it's not a surprise because it's always been in development. They've always been talking about it. Currently, 89% are for it, right? But what this does is this cuts out the SPS drop to everybody with lands unless you have a land that's mining SPS, okay? So that would be... the one type of land that harvests SPS. Okay, so that would be occupied. And that's why the price on occupied land is so high, is because they'll be the only ones mining SPS. Everybody else stops getting it. So that's the value of that. And Gathering says, I bought a few alpha packs. Yeah, I saw that video, or I saw your shortest of short videos, and picked up 2 alpha packs. Got 8.976 SPS for my land rewards for 5 surveyed plots. Yeah, but once this goes through, like I said, unless you have, I mean, unless you're reading it wrong, unless I'm reading it wrong and misconstruing this governance proposal, it cuts off everybody unless you have an occupied land. And once again, until that land, even if it's occupied, it still has to be cleared before you can start producing. So maybe I'm reading that wrong. So it specifically says occupied land is for SPS mining. And I don't believe any other land you can mine SPS on. So I went over food. Jedi says, doesn't the proposal state as long as you've surveyed your land, you'll continue to get SPS rewards? Well, let's look through it. A proposal is being put... I'm not going to sit here and read this whole thing. This is the exact statement from the white paper. With the release of Land Phase 1.5, the SPS reward pool allocated to land will no longer be automatically given out just for holding land as it is currently. Instead, players may choose to task their workers on certain land plots to mining SPS tokens in order to earn from the pool. Now, that direct statement means that the certain SPS plots are going to be the occupied. Okay. So that tells me exactly there. Everybody else gets turned off unless you have occupied. This will work very similarly to the existing staked SPS rewards. However, instead of the amount of staked SPS determining your percentage of the reward pool that you receive, it will be determined based on the amount of production points you have being put towards SPS mining on your land plots as compared to everyone else who is mining SPS on their land. Okay, so this tells me, if I'm reading it correctly, that you have to have, one, an occupied land to mine SPS. Unless you're going to show me somewhere else where it says you can mine SPS on other lands. I haven't seen that. I may be wrong, I may be reading this wrong, but that's what my takeaway is. The SPS drip for everybody gets turned off, and only people with occupied lands get that drip, and it depends upon how much, it depends upon their production points. So, and then they go on further to say, for example, if a player is producing 1% of the total production points generated by all land plots that are mining SPS, all occupied lands, during a period of time, then they will receive 1% of the total SPS reward pool for land during that period. That really ups the value of occupied land. That's why they're so expensive. Gathering says, wow, that proposal stinks if you don't have an occupied plot. Yeah, that's why I haven't voted on it yet, and I'll probably vote no, but it doesn't matter because it's going to go through whether my vote goes through or not. But unless I'm dissecting this wrong, you guys can tell me if I'm dissecting it wrong. But so and then it goes on to say it'll be subject to the resource production tax. There'll be tax. But let's go back and let's look at occupied. Let's deselect Caldera and Mountain. So the cheapest occupied land, and Gathering's been keeping track of this as well, over $500, $550. Yeah, I mean, I dissected that sentence for sentence, and the way I'm reading it is, if you want SPS drip, you got to have occupied land, and I think they thought this through. But I agree. I think that it's going to force the price of these up. And anybody watching this, don't take this as investment advice, because I've bought a lot of stuff in this game that didn't really pan out. But look, the cheapest one here is $5.59, and it's a common. The cheapest rare is $6.29. So, I had thought about the fact of just going all in, selling everything else, buying one occupied land and just going all in on one land. Or maybe buying one occupied land and then one secondary common land to produce enough food for both of them. And just calling it quits. That's my land. Gathering says, watch the SPS price spike when the free daily SPS goes away for most players. Yeah, we're all used to getting a few extra SPS per day. I think they said it was between 1 and 2 SPS per day we've been getting per land. Before it was even claimed or surveyed. Let's get an occupied plot in Daggerdale. That's a good idea. At this point, I would sell my magic. Let's look at magical and rare. So I have a magic rare lake, and if I sold it, I guess I could get around between $300 and $400 somewhere for it if somebody bought it off me. I would probably sell my magical lake to buy an occupied. But I don't know if you were on Gathering when I said this, but land has really slowed down as far as this surveying. Let's go over to land. And we're waiting for 130. The surveying is still in 121, and it has a long way to go. You know. But I still have one to claim. I think you do too as well, and we're waiting for 130. I wouldn't mind consolidating, and at this point, I think that I would sell my magical land for, I mean, that's what the game's about, right? SPS. I mean, of course, there's many things the game's about. It's a very wide umbrella, but they've consolidated down from concentrating on DEC and SPS. They're focusing on SPS. There's not too many ways you can make DEC in the game. Although, if you watched my video, you heard about or if you read through the white paper completely, you heard about the DEC grain liquidity pool, which is another way you could make DEC, and about the only way in the game currently that you can make DEC. Gathering, I think most people have claimed a lot of plots will stay empty from people who have quit playing. Yeah, I agree, and I'm hoping. There's a couple different ways to look at this. We want to go in Daggerdale, but what are the minus sides? I mean, the plus sides is it's cool sounding. And as you pointed out in your videos and went into detail on, it looks like a good area that has mountains and all variety of types of land. But if a lot of the region, Shimmering Coasts, if I'm referring to that correct, if a lot of the region stays open as far as plots not claimed, or I'm wondering how they're going to treat that, because a lot of the economy within the game depends upon having functioning castles and keeps. And, you know, here's an example. What if we went in and we bought us a couple plots, we moved to 130, right? Let's just do it for example. We put all in. We stocked them up with good monsters, got everything going. But what if like 2/3 of the rest of that region just stayed open? How would that affect us? You know, this has been loosely mentioned in some of the other town halls, and obviously it's still on the board because it's a variable, right? Nobody knows how that's going to work. I think Gathering says, I think most people have claimed a lot of plots and will stay empty. Oh, that's what you said previously. Yeah, I mean, this is mentioned by several people in YouTubers who do videos. The whole idea of, and this is kind of along the lines of the discussion of people who buy cryptocurrency and then it's lost. Whether it's in a wallet, you lose the password for, you lose connection to, the people die. Unfortunately, a certain portion of people die on a regular basis. That's life and death, right? Some people just forget about it or whatever. You know, I would think that if you spent several $100s on something, you wouldn't forget about it. But these all happen. And I would wonder, and it's been a topic brought up, what's going to happen to those portions of land? So say, for instance, down the road, okay, we claim our plots, everything, and say up to maybe 132 fill up. And then the rest through 150 just sit there open. What's going to happen to those lands? Gathering says, it may be an advantage if the Secret of Praetorian is based on the total players in the territory doing research. If there aren't many players, it may get done faster in a low population area. You know, obviously that remains to be seen, and we'll see how that fleshes out. I still think that they have a lot of work to do as far as that goes, because they haven't had a lot of details as far as the research goes. Or it could be a big negative for trading, upgrading buildings. Yeah, I agree, because a certain amount of this relies upon the economy. And what they're shooting for is the game within the game, right? That's kind of a term that was brought up lately, referring differently. But the whole idea was the land game is a not totally separate, but you could come in and you could play the land game and just buy cards specifically for doing land and buy land specifically for that and not really even play Splinterlands if you didn't want to. And part of that, you've heard Nate in the town halls going into, he's a very creative guy. Obviously, he's head of the creative team, but he's gone into how they want to make this more than just a card game, and he's very outgoing and very he wants it to be just a totally separate game, really, where you can go into your land and do things, and obviously that's way down the road, but part of that is figuring out upgrading the buildings, how the plots of land interact with each other, and they interact with the keeps and the castles, and what the castles and keeps do for the plots of land from that taxes that they're getting from, So if you read through the white paper, you see there's a couple different layers of taxes there that go to castles and keeps, and then the keeps don't really particularly farm anything, but they do make that. And then how is that used? Is that just realized as profit? Or do they have to turn around and invest that to, they've been mention of increasing the level of the castle and the keep, increasing the level of the buildings on your land to theoretically increase the production rate or the efficiency or whatever on your land. All that is yet to be seen. But it leaves room for a lot of improvement, not just have like this standard, when I originally got into land, it just kind of sounded like a fancy way of staking, right? When they first started selling land, they didn't have any information behind it. It just kind of sounded like, oh, buy lands, and then that's kind of the way this game is staking. And you just earn a passive income. But they've really fleshed it out. I kind of feel that they've put a lot of cost into each land, a lot more than I thought was going to be. So that's why I'm reconsidering my strategy. Alex says, so many questions will be answered in the next few months. Yeah, but I can also say that, we could also say that in retrospect, Alex, because a lot of questions have been answered in the last couple of months. So I can say that I'm impressed with the efficiency of the smaller team over the first part of this year. I would be lying if I didn't have kind of a gloomy perspective when I had heard about all the layoffs in November. And it does sound, coming from, I work in IT, but I work in a software company, so I'm familiar with the agile process with our products. But it does sound like their team took the agile process and really put it to work well, because they're putting out a lot for a smaller team. So I'm impressed with that. Gathering says only about 4,000 occupied plots. So at most, only 4,000 people will be able to get SPS if the proposal passes. Yes, but I feel that since this was already in their white paper, I think this is just a formality. It was already in their development idea for the land. So I think it's going to go through whether it gets voted or not. Because, say for instance it failed, I think they're going to come back, restate it to basically say the same thing and push it through anyway, because it was their whole idea. So we're coming up on the hour. Did anybody have any final things to say on the matters at hand? I'm coming out of our conversation today having a more heavy opinion of buying a occupied land. Now, with me, that would mean selling everything I've got and buying it. What about you guys? Or I could go the exact opposite way and say I'm really thinking for at least the first several weeks of the land 1.5, just having lands that produce all grain. And then possibly look at the liquidity pools, although I have kind of a, liquidity pools are tough. You stand to lose a lot if they don't go right. And Alex says, MetaMax min 95 now. I don't, as far as land price? Yeah. And Gathering says, got to go upload my season rewards. Stay tuned. Thanks for the stream. Okay, I will talk to you all later, and you have a pleasant week, and good luck to anybody out there who have not opened their daily chests yet. Alex says, do not sell anything till next year or you will lose money. Yeah. And Gathering says, I still want as many lands as I can get. We'll figure out the details later. Yeah, all these are question marks. I thank you all for stopping by and wish you a good coming up week, and I will talk to you on the flip side.